Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Gaining Perspective with Cody Armstrong. I am your host, Cody Armstrong. Of course, I'm recording this right after my third episode about sexuality. I don't currently have any responses on it. Doesn't mean I'm not going to reference back to that episode at one point or another. I'm recording this right now just because of the current political atmosphere. So yes, this one will be a more serious, tonal approach toward. It's not necessarily, it's more political, so it's not lighthearted. And the reason why is because of the new Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, and just how she has just been confirmed. I mean, not just been, it happened today, but it's a big issue. I feel, and it's bad because in the grand scheme of things, you can try to label me as something. I guess really what it comes down to, I'm not super liberal or super Democrat of any kind. It doesn't mean I don't look at their ideals and think that they have good intentions. It's just that they're kind of on an extreme. So Democratic ideals, liberal ideals are very progressive. It's kind of an inclusion of all people. It's talking about helping all people. So again, you could try to label me that. I do have a bias, and I'm sorry if that comes across harshly toward Republicans or right wing conservatives. It's not meant to polarize you. I'm trying to bring you in actually closer for a formal, or well, not necessarily formal, but I guess more informal debate, civil discussion, really. So at the end of the day, I'm looking at this and I'm kind of astounded because Betsy DeVos, or DeVos, depending on how you want to say it. What I'm getting out of this is that, so you have the vice president. You had a lot of opposition against her, and it was tied, for and against her to become the United States Secretary of Education, the 11th. Noted. And so I don't see her as a bad person or anything. Again, I don't necessarily look at politicians as oh, they're terrible people. She doesn't seem like she's a bad woman, but she also kind of doesn't seem like she's giving you the whole truth of who she is. And why she's running for Secretary of Education is beyond me. Why she was even nominated, that kind of shit doesn't necessarily fly with me, because if you even know anything about her, which I don't expect many of my listeners to know about her, but if you look at her just on a kind of outside looking in perspective, I have to say, I'm willing to bet that even a lot of Republicans and conservatives are kind of looking at this in the same way I'm looking at it, where it's why her? Because she's not very qualified, and that's kind of a big thing that's been the big issue about who she is as a person. So why is she not qualified? Okay, so let's run this down. One, I don't know. You can from a lot of articles about who she is. They herald her as an American businesswoman and a philanthropist. A huge issue behind her is that she's a big campaign contributor. So what that means is that it was actually Bernie Sanders that kind of hit her real hard about her nominee or her nomination, and he was just do you realistically think you should be sitting up here as a nomination not having any experience? And do you think he was I'm sorry if I offend you in this, but do you think that without your family's massive contributions to the Republican Party over the years, because I don't know if you know this about Betsy DeVos, but the DeVos family is one of the richest in Michigan. So yeah, if you put two and two together there, you can kind of see what's going on. And I'm not saying it's super corrupt, but this is where politics hits that I guess House of Cards style shit, where there's a lot of different strings pulled behind the scenes that we don't see. And so when somebody's name just gets tossed out there because she contributed a lot of money, well, shit, that's really hard. Like, it's really hard to believe that she should be the Secretary of Education. Like, you have to think about this. She went to private school, okay, when she, was younger. She went to private school. It was a private, I think it was a Christian school. It was a Holland Christian High School, which is a private school located in her hometown of Holland, Michigan. So with that, she went to a private school. So she didn't go to a public school. She doesn't know how that kind of system runs. And then that's where a lot of people throw a lot of shade at her, being like, why do you think you're actually qualified to do this? Why do you think you should be kind of serving over all these, like, now you're going, and Trump kind of did, he hinted at, like, I think, privatized school and all that stuff. But you have a lot of people who are filthy fucking rich, right? And this is kind of where I feel like business and politics and religion and a lot of things, they don't belong in the political scheme when choosing a person for the best position. Or choosing the best person for the position. Look at her. I mean, I'm not disgusted by her, but all of it's very puzzling, right? She's she grew up, she went to private school. She graduated from college with a business admin degree in political science. So maybe like a major in business admin and political science, like either a minor in political science. I don't know. But so political science. So she's been very political, and there's been nothing wrong with that. Like, she's had a lot of political activity since, I guess, 1982. And, in the end, like, what happens is so she's had a very big contributing factor to a lot of Republicans and stuff like that, and that's great. But I guess to put it in perspective, the DeVos family, they are obviously Republicans for however long, probably before she was even born. They are huge donors to candidates in their party, and they have given over $17 million. So if you think about that, and that's since 1989, so that's over a decently lengthy course of time, but $17 million to their party. So they believe in their party. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of you could cite anybody on giving, like, one person giving that much money, right? And while they're sorry about that. I guess it paused intermittently. I apologize. But so if you think about, like, a person's contributions, right, and how that kind of all works, there's nothing wrong with giving to something that you believe in. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Obviously, sorry, I don't know why this is, like, going haywire on me. It's pausing randomly at different times. But all I can say is that, when I look at it, unless the thing that you're contributing money to is terrible, as in it's trying to, like, hold somebody back or prevent somebody from doing something, then it's not necessarily bad. Now, the Republican Party doesn't have the best, like, history with, being for the people. Like, really all I ever hear is, like, hey, we have a lot of rich people in our party, and we have a lot of rich contributors, so therefore, let's keep us all rich, right? And then you have a lot of, like, working Republicans out there, and they think, I get the conservative, like, I just get it. I kind of get this feel, and again, this could be completely wrong and off base, and this might actually anger quite a few conservative Republicans, right-wing, whatever you want to call them. But I kind of get this sense of feeling like they're conservative to the point of, like, it's all about number one, right? And when I grew up, I kind of understood, like, oh, so a lot of the American dream is all about building yourself up, and even if that kind of means stepping on the backs of others. And I could never fully agree with that, but that is kind of a shitty way to spin it, right? It doesn't mean it's wrong, but I'm looking at her, and I have to agree. I don't feel that she's qualified to do this job. You're talking about, Trump has already said, he's wanting more privatized schooling, and I don't know why he thinks that would be better, because a lot of people, I would say probably the majority of the nation, relies on public schools, and what that means is, like, what they get shitty funding as it is. A lot of public schools do, and a lot of teachers have to be let go. My sister is a teacher, and she's constantly laid off for, because she has a master's degree and the school just doesn't want to keep her. They can't afford to keep her, I guess. And that sucks for her, and so that kind of just goes to show you, like, so she's a good teacher and she's doing her job very well. And at the end of the day, they can't keep her. Even if the school wants to, they're just like, no, like, we can't. So in the end, though, that doesn't necessarily mean like that's why public schooling is bad. It just means that I feel like to improve your education in areas that really desperately need it, and they need the funding, I'm talking like your metropolitan areas. So like think about, again, I don't know who's listening to this or where you come from, but like just simply think of LA, right? Think of big metropolitan cities, New York, LA, all across the nation. And think about like, okay, so if you grow up in rural town America, yeah, maybe you got a really decent education system because you weren't asking for much and it wasn't hard to contribute to only a handful of children or adolescents growing up. But think about the fact that like a lot of public schools go underfunded. They don't get new material. They don't get a lot of new books. They have to work with what they get. And that's kind of up to the teacher. It falls on the teacher at that point to take old recycled material. And this is not just old recycled like, oh, last year's. This is like, oh, well, this is like 6 years old, but you're still going to have to work with it. Yeah, it may not be up to date, but hey, figure it out. That's kind of bullshit. And so trying to push it into more of like charter and privatized schooling, while it wouldn't be bad, it's also kind of like buying in. So it's like saying, okay, well, we're going to give privatized or charter schools to everybody in the nation. Well, then at that point, like, what the fuck is the point of having a charter school? Like, you think, everybody thinks about that and they're like, oh, I wish I could give my kid that kind of education or and I'm like, that shouldn't be something you wish for your kid. That should be like mandatory in our nation. You want educated people because so that shit like this doesn't happen. I'm sorry, but like this woman is so underqualified. She has a business admin degree in political science. She's really only there because the fucking Republicans want her there. That's all I'm seeing is like, look at it. Look at who she is. Look at where she comes from. She already went to a private school, and that doesn't mean that she's a bad person. It just means that when somebody's underqualified, somebody's underqualified. People go after getting their college degrees and they go to apply for a place and they're like, wow, okay, so the position you're applying for is you're overqualified for it. People get turned away for overqualified. This woman's desperately underqualified, in not even just my opinion. That's a lot of people's opinions. That's tons of people throughout the nation, even some conservatives. And I'm just astounded by that. How is that possible? You have an underqualified woman who's about to call the shots for a lot of like for national public schools and privatized schools. And having gone to a private school herself, like realistically, I'm not trying to fearmonger here, but like just think about that perspective. Who do you think she's going to favor more? Do you think she's going to favor the public school system or the privatized sector? Do you think that public schools are going to get a lot more funding now, or do you think that charter schools will? And you're going to force a lot of working families that can't afford like to pay those bills to put their kids through a charter school or a privatized school. You're going to force their hand to have to pay for that. If you want to, like, I'm down to, this is where this kind of goes into, this is an idea, and this could be, maybe it's a stupid idea, but I'm down for paying a little bit higher tax, everybody in the nation being higher taxed a little bit more, so that if it's coming down to all charter schools, I want us to pay for the child's tuition as much as possible, so that, if they have to pay for books, all right, that's one thing. Still sucks, but hey, if it guarantees a good education throughout the nation, maybe it's possible with an all charter initiative. I don't know where this is headed. I think it's not headed in a great direction because, like I said, a lot of people do rely on public schooling. And I went to public school myself. I don't have really a bias one way or another because, I don't know what it's like to go to a private school. I can imagine that it is nicer, and I would want that niceness. I would want nicer things for kids like myself growing up, to go to a school where you feel good and you feel like you're getting the education you deserve. I don't know. just share your thoughts with me, what you think about it. If you think that she is qualified, please let me know why you think she's qualified. If you agree with me, cool. Tell me where you think this whole thing's going, because I'm kind of out of perspective on my own anyway. Like I'm just running into a brick wall at this point. I'm looking at this woman, looking at where she comes from, looking at her background. None of this makes sense. So if you can make sense of it to me and what you think it's going to help, or how it's going to help, or what it's going to do to us as a nation, for our education for our children, please let me know. Thank you very much for listening, and hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.